Biden never forgot who brought him to Washington, and that was the unions of Delaware, and it was the rails of Amtrak. Over 2 million miles of nearly daily travel over decades of service. Joe Biden got to know the conductors, the engineers, the folks who worked in the Wilmington shops and the folks who work here in the Bear shops. And when he had the opportunity in the darkest days of the pandemic to figure out where we ought to invest, investment came here. These shops stayed open. Some of the long overdue repair and maintenance work happened. And this union in this shop is the strongest it's been in my lifetime. So in a few minutes, you're going to hear an announcement from our president. You're going to hear an announcement of a whole bunch of complex and expensive projects. But don't get lost in the numbers. The numbers are big. But don't miss the values. The values at the end of the day are the heart of a man who for 50 years has believed in our middle class, has invested in the unions that built that middle class, and has fought for the infrastructure that ties us together across our country. Senator Carper and I will head south soon to cast votes this afternoon in the Senate on behalf of Delaware. We'll go over a bridge crossing the Susquehanna River, over 100 years old. We'll go through a tunnel underneath Baltimore, over 100 years old. And we are looking forward to an announcement today where we might have more confidence in the safety, the upgrade, and the modernization of those two key pieces of infrastructure. Folks, it was the bipartisan infrastructure law that made today possible. And one of the key architects of that in the United States Senate was my friend, my colleague, my senior senator, who served as the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee. Don't miss that public works part, because that's what helped lay the foundation for the great announcements our president is about to make this afternoon. Thank you so much, and thanks for a chance to work for you in the city of Washington.
Please welcome United States Senator Tom Carper.
Good afternoon. What was for lunch? Did you save anything for us? We've brought some good news with us. President is going to share more of that in just a few minutes. But Governor, I was nominated by President Clinton to serve on the Amtrak Board of Directors. And I have been here at these shops more times than I can count. And I feel just a real sense of homecoming to be here with all of you today. I want to thank you for your service and what you do. Thank you for giving Chris and Lisa and the governor and I and all an opportunity to serve you. There's no president in modern history who has a stronger commitment to passenger rail service than Joe Biden. Nobody. Nobody has a stronger commitment to passenger rail service. In addition to previously serving on the Amtrak Board of Directors, I still take the train to Washington and back to Delaware almost every day. The Senate is in session. We're usually in session 4 or 5 days a week. When President Biden was in the Senate, we'd often ride the trains together. And we're not alone. Each day, some 750,000 Americans ride along a portion of the Northeast Corridor. Think about it, 3/4 people take the train up and down the Northeast Corridor, a figure that continues to rise. And here's some good news. The number of ridership this year is 30% above last year, and the ridership was up where it was before we fell into the pandemic. So we're back and heading in the right direction. Just a couple of weeks ago, we welcomed Mitch Landrieu, the President's senior advisor for infrastructure, to cut the ribbon at the newly improved Joseph R. Biden train station in Wilmington. Anybody been down here? Anybody been down here in recent? Isn't it beautiful? God, isn't that beautiful? And it's been a really a great couple of weeks for Amtrak here in Delaware, and I think for the country. Like so many people, I truly love riding the train to work. People say, why do you ride the train all the time? One, it's efficient. Two, it's reliable. And three, it's my most productive quiet time. People will come up and they'll see I'm working, and they start to interrupt me, and they'll say, are you Tom Carper? And I say, no, I'm Chris Coons. So, well, they say, you're the guy I'm looking for. But people are friendly on the train. And I love riding the train. I feel like I'm still part of the family. Anybody here remember your first train ride? Anybody here remember your first train ride? My first train ride, I was 6 years old. My sister was 7. We're visiting our grandparents in Beaver, West Virginia, right outside of Beckley, where we were born. And we would run outside of my grandparents' house every morning about 10 o'clock. There's a railroad track, like from here to those cameras. It went right by, and there was a gate, like right where this yellow fence is. And we would run up to the gate, we'd wait for the train to come, and we'd pump our arms up and down in order to get the train to blow its whistle at us. And when it did, we were just delirious. One day, we ran down, the train's coming, my sister and I started jumping up and down, and the train stops right in front of us, like right here, the train stops. And off the train comes our grandfather. It was his train. And he came and he opened up the gate to let us through the fence, and he put us up on the train, and we took off. And for about 500 miles, it was about 500 feet, but it seemed longer. And about 500 feet down the way, we stopped, and he let us off the train, and there was a gravel road, and he said, run back to the house. Don't tell your grandmother. Don't tell your grandmother. Guess what? We ran back to the house. We ran into that house, and we said, Grandma, Grandma, you'll never guess what Grandpa did. And we told her, and she said, he'll go to jail. They'll put him in prison for this. But they didn't. And that was my first train ride. And I have loved trains ever since. Maybe you feel the same way. In addition to being part of our nation's DNA, trains are critical to keep our economy humming. And it's humming these days, humming real strong. And the investments in passenger rail that we're going to announce today, the President will announce today, will help ensure that efficient, reliable rail service continues along the Northeast Corridor and gets better in the years to come. It's important to remember how we got to this point. Senator Coons, who was a big supporter of the bipartisan infrastructure law that I was privileged to help write and manage on the Senate floor, was Senator Shelley Capito of West Virginia. Calls for investing, you ready for this? $66 billion. $66 billion for our nation's rail infrastructure. That's the most significant federal investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak over 60, 70 years ago. This funding is helping to make long overdue repairs to modernize our rail infrastructure. Many of us know that having a passenger rail service that is safe and that people want to ride is important for our country. And let me just add, it's important for our economy, and it's also important for our planet. This is the only planet we're going to have. There's no planet B. Why is it important for our planet? Well, I'll tell you. Our transportation sector, which includes all the cars, cars, vans, trucks that we drive, about 30% of the emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, come out of our mobile sources, our cars, trucks, and vans that we ride. Almost daily, it seems scientists tell us from all over the world, they issue new warnings that the emissions and global warming which flows from them our days on this planet are limited unless we do something. Improving passenger rail is a key way to getting more cars, trucks, and vans off of our roads while reducing congestion and improving the quality of the air that we breathe. These investments are proof that we can protect our planet while also keeping us on track with good-paying jobs and to maintain our nation's economic competitiveness. So I'm proud to join my colleague, Chris Coons, our Governor, Secretary of Transportation, today to reaffirm our commitment to Amtrak's future. And after that, I look forward to getting on a train later today and going to work in Washington, D.C. to take care of business. Let me close with this, a real quick story. Albert Einstein, smart guy. Albert Einstein used to say, in adversity lies opportunity. He was right then, he's right today. But Albert Einstein used to take the train a lot. And he taught at Princeton. He'd get on the train some days, but he would go up to New York City, or he'd get on the train some days and he'd go down to Washington, D.C. And one day he got on the train and he started looking for in his coat pockets for his tickets, and couldn't find it. Looked in his trousers for his tickets. He started looking in his briefcase for his tickets. He couldn't find his tickets. And the conductor comes along and says, "Dr. Einstein, we know who you are. You're okay. You ride a train all the time." And he says, "We know who you are." And so the conductor turns around. He starts to walk out of the car, and he's about to walk to the next car, and he looks back, and Dr. Einstein's down on his hands and knees looking for his ticket. The conductor rushes back and he says, Dr. Einstein, we know who you are. You don't have to do this. We know who you are." And Einstein looks up at him and says, "I know who I am too. I just don't know where I'm going." I just don't know where I'm going. Well, with the announcement today, not only do we have a better idea where we're going in terms of moving people up and down the Northeast Corridor, we know how we're going to do it, and we know how we're going to pay for it. The person who's providing the leadership for that is our president. And I'm happy to be with Chris and Lisa and our Secretary of Transportation and our governor in support of all that. And I again say to all of you, thank you for all you do with your lives, and thank you for letting us serve you. God bless you. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Please welcome Delaware Governor John Carney.
Good afternoon, Amtrak. Good afternoon, Delaware. As a lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan, this is a pretty good day. I see our Eagles crew here. I'll talk slower for those of you who are Cowboy fans here in the audience. It's always a good day when the President of the United States is here. And today's announcement is a big deal for Amtrak and for the Northeast Corridor. It's also a big deal for Delaware. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to all of us who've known Joe for as long as we have. This country has never had a greater champion of Amtrak than this president. And there's no greater champion for our state than Joe Biden. Delaware, trains, and Joe Biden, they go together, plain and simple. Just like then Senator Joe Biden, I rode the train back and forth to Washington for 6 years in Congress, like our congressional delegation does today. It's how you stay connected with the people you serve and never forget where you came from. And that's our president. That's the example he set for all of us. Today's announcement builds on an unprecedented federal investment in our state, putting Delaware on a path to be the first state with universal broadband. That's worth a round of applause. Universal broadband across the state. As we learned just the other day with the announcement by Secretary Buttigieg, helping us expand the porting of Wilmington at Edgemoor, supporting thousands of good-paying union jobs, and fast-tracking and increasing transportation projects up and down the state, again, putting people to work. And that's on top of the critical help we got from the Biden administration from the minute he was sworn in 3 years ago, supporting our efforts to vaccinate citizens from COVID-19, keeping businesses afloat and helping our economy come back even stronger. And today, our fiscal position here in Delaware is as strong as it's been in a long time. And so as the governor of the state of Delaware, I have a simple message for Delaware's favorite son. Welcome home, Mr. President.
Please welcome proud Amtrak family and Bear Car Shop employees, Sterling, Tom, and Thomas Rapelli.
Good afternoon. It is an honor to welcome you all here, a place where my family and I call home for many years. I gotta take a step back. Oh my God, my union brothers and sisters, look at what all our hard work has gotten us. Congratulations to everyone. My name is Sterling Rapelli Jr., and I am joined by my brother Tom and my nephew Thomas, and we are proud Amtrak employees. My brother and I are electricians, and my nephew is a sheet metal worker. It's not an exaggeration to say that working on the railroad runs deep in my family's DNA. After proudly serving our country in World War II, my father went on to spend nearly 40 years as a railroad electrician, spending many of those years with Amtrak. Beginning with my grandfather, our family railroad service spans 4 generations and collectively more than 100 years. I remember growing up, my father would say to us at the dinner table, "Working for the railroad won't make you rich, but you will be able to raise a family, afford good things in life, send your children to college, live a comfortable life." After all these years, thanks in great part to the unions we belong to, IB, EW, and SMART, that has continued to hold true. Another great benefit for working for Amtrak is the people you meet along the way. People like then Senator Joseph R. Biden, whom frequently visit us here at the Delaware shops over the years, and whom we affectionately called Uncle Joe, because we consider him one of the family. Because of President Biden and his investment in Amtrak, we've hired over 200 union mechanics here at the Delaware shops in the last 2 years, and 50 men and women as part of our Amtrak's apprenticeship program. This is proof that President Biden is not only invested in our present, but in our future. It is now my great honor to introduce the man who has made this all possible. The President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Well, it's good to be home. I've been coming down here long. Please take a seat if you have one. And if I say anything you don't like, don't jump, okay? Thank you all for being here. And Sterling, thank you for the introduction. the whole family. You know, it's good to be here with such good friends. I've spent a lot of my time working with, on, and around Amtrak and all its employees, but you know, one of the reasons why it's worked so well here in Delaware is because of John Carney, Tommy Carper, and Chris Coons. And I mean that sincerely. We've had overwhelming support from the Delaware delegation. That's because we ride the train so damn much. Attorney General Kathy Jennings, who used to work with my son Bo, and Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer, and my good friend and hell of an athlete, Mike Przicki, and Pete Buttigieg, thanks for doing such a great job. Look, guys, we're announcing historic investment in America's railroads. I've been talking about this for a long time, I know, but finally we're getting it done. More than $16 billion, 16 with a B, billion dollars here in the Northeast Corridor. 25 different projects, all to build the Northeast Corridor from Boston to Washington. It's part of my agenda to invest in America, and I've been fighting for this for a long time. To invest in Americans, not just America. There's no better place to make this announcement than in my home state of Delaware. Here in Bear, the maintenance facility. And a few miles away, the Wilmington shops. Over 800 people keep trains in the entire Northeast Corridor working in good order. And it's not been easy because some are pretty old trains. Machinists, electricians, pipe fitters, facility workers, you know, coach cleaners, boilermakers, laborers, foremen. But they have one thing in common. They're all good paying union jobs. Union jobs. Union jobs. I've been saying a long time. The middle class built America, but unions built the middle class. Unions built the middle class. For years in the Senate, as Vice President, I met with the workers in these shops and I made them a promise. I said I'd do all I could and all my power to fight to keep their jobs and to make our rail system better and to work on the Northeast Corridor. I told them I'd fight for them and with them, and they stuck with me. And that's just what I've done. When I became president, I made sure that the bipartisan infrastructure law, that's the law to rebuild our highways and bridges and rail and the whole all our infrastructure. By the way, it's a tight little law. It's about $1.2 billion, you know, with all everything said and done. The point is, how can you be the leading country in the world and have a second-rate infrastructure? Second-rate infrastructure. It's not possible. It includes the largest investment in passenger rail since Amtrak was created 50 years ago. $66 billion for world-class rail right here at home. And that includes the largest investment in the Northeast Corridor since the Pennsylvania Railroad laid down these tracks in 1850. In 1850. Fully electrified trains on this corridor emit 83% less greenhouse gases, by the way, than driving your car. 72% less greenhouse gases than taking a plane. And folks here in Delaware know that as senator, I rode the train back and forth between Washington and Wilmington virtually every day for 36 years when I got elected, and then as vice president as well. Amtrak wasn't just a way to get home to family. The conductors and engineers became my family, and not a joke. I'd have a major event from my home every year, all the conductors and engineers, from New York on down to Washington. When I was vice president, I flew over 1 million miles on Air Force Two, but I traveled further than that Amtrak over the years. I remember one of the conductors when I was going home. Secret Service is wonderful, and they really are, but they'd rather you not travel Amtrak, because it's not Amtrak, rail, because it has to stop so damn many times, and there's so many options for people to do things that they don't want to have done. So, but I was coming home to see my mom, and I just, she was living with us at the time. My dad had passed away. And I got in a train on a Friday, and I won't get him into complete trouble, just tell his first name. He was number 2 in seniority at the time, Angelo. And Ange came up to me as I walked in, he said, "Joey," and he grabbed my cheek. He said, "Joey, baby." And he said, all this stuff, because that's published in the newspaper, that I had traveled 1,200,000 miles on Air Force planes as vice president. They published that on a regular basis. He said, I won't quote him exactly, but he said, big deal, Joey. And I said, what's it mean, Angie? He said, look, he said, we just had the retirement dinner up in Newark. He said, you know how many miles you traveled on Amtrak? And I said, no. He said, 1,000,000, I think it was 320,000 miles. And I said, how'd you figure that? He said, well, 118 days a year, almost 300 miles a day, 36 years, plus his wife. And he went on the whole deal. I said, I believe you, Angela. Let me get in the train, will you? But the point is, Tommy and I particularly spend a lot of time on the train. So when I talk about how badly the Northeast Corridor needs upgrades, you don't need to tell me. I've lived it. I also know how important this line is to computers and the MARC rail between Maryland and Washington, the Metro North between New York and Connecticut, the New Jersey Transit. I know what it feels like to be stuck on the tracks when you're trying to get home to see your family or trying to get south to make a vote because the track is something went wrong. I know how much it matters. Over 2,200 trains run in this corridor every single day, serving 800,000 passengers. It's the busiest rail corridor in the United States and one of the busiest in the world. And you guys keep it moving. You guys keep it moving. Well, the problem anywhere along the lines means delays up and down the East Coast. For commuters trying to get to work, for businesses trying to get their goods on the shelves, to travelers trying to visit family. This region represents 20% of the gross domestic product of the entire United States of America. If this line were to shut down just one day, it would cost our economy, the American economy, $100 million a day. But this line has tunnels and bridges that are over 100 years old. I know because I've walked through 2 of them. Train stations that haven't seen a major upgrade for generations. Tracks in constant need of repair. Look, folks, it has real consequences. This outdated infrastructure leads to over 4,000 hours of delays each year on Amtrak. 4,000 hours a year. For example, the Hudson River Rail Tunnel, critical link in New York Penn State to New York Penn Station, the busiest train station in America, I might add. It opened for business 113 years ago, that tunnel. It's so badly damaged. Remember Superstorm Sandy? Well, it got badly damaged at that time, over 10 years ago. It still remains the remnants of seawater in the tunnel, eating away at the concrete, steel, and electrical components. In 2020, passengers saw over 12,000 minutes of delays getting through that tunnel. But last week, thanks to the leadership of Chuck Schumer, we broke ground to rebuild the Hudson River Tunnel. The new tunnel will add capacity to increase the speed, reduce delays, and the biggest rail line in the country. With today's announcement, we're committing $11 billion to this one project, that one project. It's critical to transforming the Northeast Corridor. People have been working on it for over a decade. Now we're finally getting it done. And that's not all. As everyone who's traveled through the Baltimore Tunnel knows, it's a major checkpoint, but it's also a major choke point for 9 million Amtrak and MARC rail passengers who pass through it each year. 1.4 miles, that's how long the stretch is, with a very tight curve, so trains have to slow down at 30 miles an hour to get through safely. On 99% of the weekdays, there's delays somewhere near there. It's a consequence. I've traveled through that tunnel literally thousands of times. And trust me, I know. That tunnel is 150 years old. It was built 150 years ago. Ulysses S. Grant was president when it was built. The structure is deteriorating. And a lot of you know, a lot of the workers know, the roof of that tunnel is leaking. The floor is literally sinking. This is the United States of America, for God's sake. The United States of America. We know we're better than that. And now we're proving it. That's why we're fully replacing the entire Baltimore Tunnel We're not just changing this, we're replacing the whole tunnel. As part of the Invest in America workforce hubs, we're working with leaders in Baltimore along with the union officials and career and technical schools to train the local workforce to help build that new tunnel so we have the capacity. The new tunnel will be all electric and trains will travel through it at 110 miles an hour, not 30 miles an hour. MARC trains will go from Baltimore to Washington in under 30 minutes. And on average weekdays, that's nearly 7 hours. That eliminates 7 hours of delay on average. Look, we're also investing $9 billion to replace over 1,000 trains and train cars with state-of-the-art equipment, including electric trains, made in America. Made in America. And the folks standing with me here today will help maintain and repair those trains that'll move along this corridor. Look, just 2 weeks ago, Mitch Landrieu, the former mayor of New Orleans and my infrastructure coordinator and a senior advisor, was here in Delaware at the to cut ribbons on renovations of the Wilmington train station to make it more accessible. Wilmington train station is a busy station for a small city, a relatively small city. But you know what? If you have any infirmment, if you have heavy baggage, you got to go down an entire flight of stairs. You either walk down 2 flights of stairs, or you go down and the escalator is not that good for real. Well, thanks to the upgrades, after all these years, passengers don't have to haul their luggage down the stairs anymore. Every passenger, regardless of disability, can have an easy time getting on and off the train as well. The list goes on. The projects to make life more rational and modern in our train stations, from Boston to Washington. Look, when all this is done, we'll reduce delays and speed up the trains along the Northeast Corridor. This matters for businesses trying to get their goods to market. It matters for the parent commuting to work in the morning. It matters for folks trying to get home late for dinner. It matters. If thousands of people ride the trains in the Northeast Corridor, it's like taking 500,000 automobiles off the road every day. That's what it's like. And this has phenomenal environmental positive impact. As we continue to invest in rail across the country, we're going to take even more vehicles off the road, saving millions of barrels of oil a day. Folks, meanwhile, our MAGA Republican friends in Congress are proposing to slash Amtrak's budget. We're trying to make train travel easier, faster, safer, more reliable. We're trying to make it slower, harder, and less safe. You can't make this stuff up, but that's okay. We're not going to let them stop the progress we're making, and I promise you that. And by the way, we're making all this progress with American workers, with products made in America, and with union labor. In fact, Amtrak and the building trades have agreed that project labor agreements will be in place all across the rail construction projects up and down the Northeast Corridor. That's another way of saying it's going to create good union jobs. It can create over 100,000 of those good union jobs. And that's on top of the thousands of good union jobs running the trains and maintaining the safety system already. These are jobs for folks I thought about as I take that train home. You know the part, guys, you get outside of Baltimore, just before you get into Baltimore, you can look out the window and you're going through basically the neighborhood. And I always used to sit there, I mean it, coming home, and look out and see people sitting at the kitchen tables. Literally, you could see them right along the track. And wondering, what are they thinking about? What's on their minds? The kids put to bed, questions asked, ordinary and profound. Will there be enough money left over at the end of the month after we pay all our bills? Just have a little bit of breathing room. We'll be able to look my child in the eye and say, it's going to be okay, we're going to do fine. Folks, too many people have been left behind in the past or treated like they're invisible. We're building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up where no one's left behind. You know, my dad used to say, Joey, and I mean this sincerely, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about you being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. That's what he'd say, and he meant it. That's what decent living's about. So let me close with this. Nearly a century ago, Franklin Roosevelt came up with the Rural Electrification Act that brought electricity to millions of Americans. Nearly 70 years ago, President Eisenhower launched the interstate highway system. The investment we're making today will be for our kids and grandkids what those historic programs were for previous generations, only bigger. And as a result, I truly believe this country is about to take off. Because for the first time in a long time, we're bringing pride back to cities and towns all across America that have been left behind. I can honestly say I've never been more optimistic about America's future. And folks, in my view, the president long after I'm president is going to have more to do. One of the things I convinced President Ladd when I was vice president, I convinced the president to do, provide money for high-speed rail. You know, you can go and get in a train in China and go 210 miles an hour. China. We could do it here in the United States on this Northeast corridor if we straightened out 3 big corridors. It would cost about $1 trillion. But we had the ability to do that for a rail from Florida to Mississippi and all kinds of places we can do it. But think about it. Why, in the United States of America, do we not have the best rail system in the world? So this is a big beginning, $61 billion. Take care of the Northeast corridor. But there's so much more we can do to better the environment, the quality of life, and make us more competitive. And you're the guys at this place who can just do it. So we just have to remember one thing, though. We sometimes forget. This is the United States of America. There's not a damn thing we can't do if we set our mind to it, not one. Thank you all. And may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.